Very good. Right. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon to all of the Filipinos out there, especially those who have already conveyed their messages at an earlier time. People from Osami City. We have people from Naga City. All right. My father is a Bicolano. Uh, I hope all of you are keeping well. We have people from Pampanga, Muntinlupa City, of course, Manila. And some of the few I can view from the chat in here, other than those mentioned, people from the provinces, all right, from Rizal province particularly, Tarlac, all right. Um, we hope that you are keeping well. We are very happy to conduct this international webinar. I also would want to say good morning for those who are from Dubai. They're also watching right now, where I am currently in. And our fellow kababayans who happen to be in the other side of the world, in the western side of the world, in other parts of the continents of the world. The technology is always used at its peak, especially for the positive blade because it's always double bladed. And we're using that advantage now because wherever you may be, nothing is impossible, especially in bringing together, people from around the world in a spur of the moment. So, yep, we're very happy to bring you the international webinar on navigating mental health for teachers. I'm Dr. Rommel Sergio, your mental health advocate here in the UAE. Of course, I grew up in the Philippines. I used to be an HR practitioner for about 5 years before I taught in the university for about 8 years. And then in the year 2008, I happened to work here, so I have around 12 years here in the UAE, teaching psychology and management courses. Now I'm currently at the Canadian University, Dubai. So to keep things going, prepare your pen and pencil. Maybe you have your usual gadget with you just to key in your scores on the aspect of just checking how you are today. All right, this will be fun. So just assign a score for yourself with 1 point if your answer is yes for the upcoming questions are be flashing on the screen. But for now, just just capture these data if in case you want to get in touch privately for any matter that would probably concern your mental health. But later on, I'll be, flashing on the screen very important information for those who need some free online consultation. There's a group in the Philippines called Ugat Sanda Line. Later on, I'll flash on the screen the relevance, of connecting with them because they basically would aid some of our teachers. Since the focus part discussion today will be the teachers who would be wanting to get free, mental health consultation. In that case, so yep, just try to look into this part of my data, and then we'll take it from there. Okay. All right. So as I have said, you need to assign 1 point if your answer is yes on the 10 items that I'll be flashing on the screen. So this will be fun again, as I have said. So just make sure that you follow through the items. I'll mention the items twice, and then assign a no if your answer happened to be a no. Okay, so we'll go to that direction now. So again, there's no right and wrong answers. It's just a matter of you reflecting on what you feel and what you think as of now or in the past 2 weeks at least. So the first 5 questions are flashed on the screen. All right. And the number one question in here would be, have you planned productive activities that you haven't been able to get yourself to start or complete. Again, your reference is not just today, but in the last 2 weeks. Place 1 point for yes and 0 for no. Again, have you planned productive activities that you haven't been able to get yourself to start or complete? Second question, have you had trouble feeling motivated or energetic enough to plan your productive activities? Have you had trouble feeling motivated or energetic enough to plan productive activities? Number 3, have you attempted to do something productive but had trouble focusing? Number 3, have you attempted to do something productive but you had trouble focusing? And number 4, let's keep this going. Again, this is fun. It's about you, so there's no right and wrong answer. Don't worry about that. Have you had trouble sleeping and or getting up in the morning? Have you had trouble sleeping and or getting up in the morning? And or taking long naps during the day? Okay, again, have you had trouble sleeping and or getting up in the morning? And or taking long naps during the day? Number 5 on the list, excuse me. Have you spent several hours passively watching TV, surfing the internet, or doing other things just to pass time? Again, number 5, have you spent several hours passively watching TV, surfing the internet, or doing other things just to pass time? So later we'll add up on your scores, but for those who just, who have just started to view us, please assign 1 point if your answer is yes and 0 if your answer is no. All right. I'll move on to the second set of questions comprising of 5 other questions, and that's questions 6 to 10. All right. Number 6, let me proceed. Have you eaten more food than you'd like and or less healthy food that you'd like? Again, number 6, have you eaten more food than you'd like and or less healthy food than you'd like? I think these days it's not just social distancing we're trying to avoid, but also to distance yourself from your refrigerator, right? All right, that's number 6. Number 7, have you experienced feelings of loneliness? Any of these? Not exactly all of them. Have you experienced feelings of loneliness, anxiety, panic? We have one person in the chat room right now that has a panic name on his name. All right, I hope that's not exactly what's happening right now. So again, have you experienced feelings of loneliness, anxiety, panic, depression, boredom, irritation, and or numbness? Right, that's number 7. So any of these emotions, not exactly a mix of them, that's number 7. Number 8, have you felt anxious, guilty, or upset? Again, it doesn't necessarily mean the combination of these, but at least one of them. About experiencing these emotions, especially since so many people are in worse situations than you are, or felt guilty whenever you felt happy, since so many people are suffering. One way or the other, some of us even prevent ourselves to post something on social media regarding sumptuous food that happened to be on our table. And that could be part of number 8, when you prevent yourself in posting them on social media. It's one of the many examples. Again, have you felt anxious, guilty, or upset about experiencing these emotions? Especially, so many people are in worse situations than you are. All right. Or felt guilty whenever you felt happy, since so many people are suffering. We're now uh, on number nine, or in number nine item, wherein you have the question: have you felt anxious, guilty, and or frustrated with yourself because you know, or at least assume, that you're having episodes when you're not coping as well as most people are? Okay, this comes with your self-doubt, in this time wherein you have self perception that are you exactly not coping as most people are? Okay, so again, have you felt anxious, guilty, and or frustrated with yourself because you know, or at least assume, that you're having episodes when you're not coping as well as most people are, right? And lastly, have you felt like you should be handling things better than you are? So just more on the general note, that a feeling like you should be handling things better than you are, not in comparison with the others, unlike in number nine. It's more of your personal appraisal of yourself that you should be handling things better than you are. All right. Okay, you can tally your answers now. So the maximum score, obviously, that you can have would be 10. Because if you assigned yourself with a full yes answers, that will generate you 1 point each. And we have 10 items here. So you have around 10 items in total. All right. Okay, so kindly check your scores, and I'll be flashing on the screen very specific point system on what the scores would mean according to the experts when we look at the adjustment, the feelings, the thinking, way of thinking that we have right now. Okay, so again, for those who just joined us now, we're very lucky to have the Philippine Continuing Professional Development Training Center incorporated there in the Philippines to sponsor this international webinar on navigating mental health for teachers. All right, so let me proceed to the next section of our discussion today, just to look into your scores. Let's stop from those who have 3 points to 10 points. All right, those who are already commenting, can you key in your scores? That will be fine. If not, we will be respecting your privacy, of course. That will be all right. But this is fun, right? This is about yourself anyway. No right and wrong answers. Okay, as long as you have been very honest about it. What does it mean if you have a score of 3 to 10? All right, so later we'll discuss if you have 0 to 2. Okay, so the answer here is that according to experts in today's world, especially those who are mental health experts, psychologists, psychiatrists, all of them agree that you are indeed handling the crisis like most people are handling it. So you don't have to worry. It seems like normal to be agitated, to be stressed nowadays. It will be a sweeping statement for me to say it's okay to be depressed and to have anxiety, because those are, descriptions of disorders that must be clinically diagnosed in the process. But at least you're stressed as of the moment, and you feel at times that you're anxious and all that. That seems to be very normal nowadays, knowing that the pandemic is here and there are a lot of issues beleaguering a particular teacher like you and me, right? So if your answer is fewer than 3, meaning 0 to 2, on all of those questions, when you generate the cumulative, number as you add them, You are suspected to have some sort of superhuman powers destined to fight the COVID-19 successfully on your own, right? It may be funny to have this kind of description, but experts themselves are saying probably you may have the superhuman powers nowadays because you don't feel anxious or stressed at some point in time, right? So it's just a snapshot of the discussion point I'll be having today. Again, we're very blessed to have a session with all of you through our the host, the one who spearheaded our program today. Again, Philippine Continuing Professional Development Training Center Incorporated in the Philippines. All right. Moving forward, I just had the scanning of what you feel. In a nutshell, I'll be discussing what will transpire for this session, right? So we have just done in scanning what you feel and think. It's like a mental exercise because people nowadays do not exactly have the opportunity to look internally, and assess what he or she would be feeling. And we lack that kind of exercise. So one way over the other, part of our mental exercise on a daily basis, it's good to have this intrapersonal relationship with ourselves. Okay, so there is such thing as intrapersonal relationship wherein you have the opportunity to really counter check, how am I today? Just don't make it too loud when you do it on your own. You know what that means, right? When when you're being heard by somebody else, that you are speaking to yourself that loudly. All right. So moving forward, we have very interesting discussion points today. So let me start with the discussion on the concept of mental health and what is not. So I'll look into the dichotomy, into the framework of mental health according to many experts. And after that, we'll have the discussion on the facts on mental health, and some of the challenges that a particular, instructor would have, or a particular teacher would have, regardless if you're in the formative education teaching young kids, or you are in higher level of teaching in the high school level, junior and senior high particularly, or you are teaching in the university. We're all in the same line of industry in education, and we're exposed to a lot of stressors these days. So among those challenges that we have, all right, what do we think would be a means to promote the well-being? So chances are I'll be discussing on some mental health programs for teachers. Some of them are already operational, some of them sound trendy. All right, and at the last part, I'll be discussing the platform I've mentioned in my prelude, stating that there is such thing as free online counseling program for all of you. Okay, whenever you would need someone to talk to, there's a group specifically in the Philippines, that have been established, or that had been established since April, during the pandemic. All right. So let me, plunge into the actual discussion of mental health. The different psychological associations from around the world, that includes the Philippines, American Psychological Association, for instance, agree in the context of the World Health Organization's framework of mental health. So there must be a balance. In reality, we are to encapsulate what it means. The framework gives us the idea that there must be a balance between three factors, major components of well being, and happen to be the physical well being. That means, this is in reality what we currently experience regarding some illnesses or problems with weight, among others that would contribute to our stress level. If in any case that there is a balance, there is mental health in there. If there's no balance, or there is disequilibrium, definitely we're talking about, you know, uh, the opposite of mental health there. You may have mental health problem or mental health illness at the in the worst case scenario. All right. So mental well-being here, some people would say it's psychological. Mental in here would also be pertaining to the way we think. If there is such thing as physical, there is such thing as mental. So here it's probably with the way you think, with the way you accept things. Nowadays we have a lot of problems concerning our way of accepting things in our environment, in our lives. Okay, so social well-being is of course more on behavior. So this is more on how you exhibit your positivity and how you relate well with other people. So these three must be in balance. So experts agree at a specific point in time that if there's a balance between or rather among the three, then you definitely would have good mental health. All right. So in reality, right now, as we talk, some of us would definitely give a concluding statement that not all of the dimensions of wellness, when you split the three, physical well-being, mental and social well-being, for instance, into more specific components, experts would also look into the eight wellness dimensions of wellness. And as you see at the higher portion of the wheel, you will find environmental. So a lot of us are, suffering in this case because of the environmental issue of COVID-19. All right, and many of us, due to lockdown in the past weeks, of course, it has toned down a bit when you talk about the lockdown that in comparison with what was happening in the previous weeks. So that also contributed to our, in a way, in layman's terms, suffering or exposure to stress. Some are having more of emotional, some who lost their jobs, salary cut, not exactly losing their jobs, but forced leave, for instance, like people who are viewing us right now straight from the UAE and from other parts of the world, well, specifically in the Middle East, for instance. It's not a separate case. We're all suffering from salary cut or sometimes forced leave, at that. And you can find a lot of people, a lot of Filipinos, thousands of them, going home in the Philippines, and are trying to get their repatriation in due time. So of course some of them are teachers as well, right? And we're very much aware of the financial, the occupational below. You will find these are very much related because our finances are hooked with our own respective occupations, right? And of course, many of us are becoming more prayerful these days. Prayer is a form of meditation. So spiritually, below you will find a shade on spirituality. And the way we behave these days, even in social media, that would dictate the kind of pressure many people have. Some other people, you can see how, how implicitly and explicitly they rant in social media. So that affects the social component. Well, you have also intellectual, wherein most of us are upgrading our skills because we find it difficult to compete these days, and you need to learn more skills, expand your knowledge, so you can be well in that particular dimension, and in due time you can get the job outside the line of job that you currently have, if that's your plan. Although I'm not really recommending, but a lot of people are really expanding their horizons, looking to other possibilities, as they seek for other jobs, not exactly related to their current profession. Or it could also be in line with your current profession, but you learn new things. Okay. So there's also a way for us to look if there's no balance, with regard to the eight different dimensions of wellness. You cannot definitely conclude you're well, right? So well-being, in that will be part of the layman's term when we discuss, a portion of the discussion related to the three major components drawn by World Health Organization. All right. So again, for those who just logged in, our discussion today is focus more on navigating on mental health for teachers. So allow me to discuss more scenario related to the plight of a typical instructor teacher in today's world, particularly in the Philippines, and in relation to what's happening also in the Middle East. Okay, so in a way, in contrast to the mental health that I was mentioning, the condition that I was mentioning according to World Health Organization, the opposite would be the impact on our health, on our the way we think, the way we feel, and the way we behave. It's like the ABC model, if you would see. A for affective, which is in the middle, it's the feeling part. B for behavior, and C for cognitive. Cognitive means thinking. So very much related to the framework of World Health Organization on the aspect of physical, mental, and behavioral. All right. So if we are not able to sleep well, and at least in the past 2 weeks, there are sleep disturbances, you can't function as a person inside your organization, as a father or as a mother or as an educator, and you're missing a lot of expected standards that you need to comply with. So, therefore, there must be a problem with the state of our mental health. All right. So, there's also something in the middle, wherein if you would say there is such thing as mental health, there is poor mental health, and there is such thing as mental illness, or some experts would say mental disorder. All right. Other experts would also say that mental illness would not exactly be mental illness, but it's a form of mental health concern or problem, depending on how you take it. Mental disorders, if we are to take it into the highest level of problem, that would mean that you are clinically diagnosed with some of the signs like depression and anxiety, which are very prevalent nowadays. Prevalent, I mean, because it's very obvious that a lot of people are panicking, they have anxiety attacks, and they may even have having the manifestations of feeling very low, and some extent hurting themselves and committing suicide. All right, so that's part of depression, and that would be part of the mental illness or mental disorder, if you may say so. All right, so it's not like a switchboard that you are turned on today, you feel very good, the following day you would feel very lonely, and you will suddenly conclude, oh, I have mental disorder. It doesn't work like that. There are different parameters set by experts in the field, psychologists and psychiatrists, wherein there are set of behavioral indicators, and you need to be clinically diagnosed before we say you have those conditions. But of course, on your own, you can detect later. We'll talk about those signs. Okay. All right. So the the biological aspect of looking into it, or the psychological and psychosocial aspect, would state that, before it would become pressing or mental illness one way over the other, we undergo specific set of scenarios first. So I'll be discussing the typical stress factors encountered by a typical instructor, like many of you who are here now. And of course, I'm not exemption to the rule. No one is. No one is definitely shielded from all of these possible, concerns on the way. So we all experience stress. Maybe some of you, before logging into our, or before you tune in to today's discussion, you found it difficult to connect, and you were scratching your head and you feel like giving up, so you're already exposed to that kind of stress. Anxiety has been an issue with many. Out of stress, it would be developed into anxiety, and some may have not entirely panic attacks or some other forms of anxious behavior, but you may be experiencing depression. The signs are actually very much connected, but there are also minor differences between anxiety and depression. So we'll deal with those later on, and some of you may also have related questions. I'll be entertaining the questions later on, okay? So I can see some of you have started to draw some of the questions from here. We'll be more than happy to to answer them all right? So that's one of those. So let's deal with the common stressors that I have seen in the previous studies, at least in the last three studies conducted in the Philippines and in the Middle East, in comparison. So my reference is from 2017 up to date. And of course, there are some few data on COVID-19 pandemic that would be part of our stress in the current time. So let me start with having too much paperwork. Even before the pandemic, we know for a fact that we are very much into it. All right, let's accept the fact we do a lot of reports on a daily basis. Other than the grades of the students, we are confronted with so many, types of protocol that we need to adhere into, and that entails us preparing some of the documents that overnight we come to prepare them, and there may be some sleepless nights. You burn the midnight oil. That's part of this component. So in the 2017 studies at DLSU, part of the composite of these beleaguering problems is obviously on that note, and spinning off to the second factor, low salary. And now we have COVID-19. Some of us, even here in the Middle East, unbelievable. Even if there may be some students, but of course, the decline in the number of students would indicate also some universities thinking twice whether they will continue or not. So Filipinos are also affected in this area. Some of them are still keeping their jobs, but the salary happened to be lower than what has been arranged before. So imagine the kind of impact that would be for us, knowing that the pandemic is here. There's pretty much of the hodgepodge or combination that you would find in this particular presentation. So we cannot also negate the fact that due to COVID-19 pandemic, true that there may be some stores that are open during the height of the pandemic, but now it has been kind of loosened up. You can still find high cost in even in face mask and gloves that you would want to wear. So that the high cost of living is still in the run, and it's definitely something very obvious, right? As we talk, some of us here in the Middle East are still teaching for summer courses, and we are required for that, and we have oversized classes, and it's not an exemption in the Philippines. I know for a fact that you have something like current issues regard, especially if you are teaching in government entities at that. So you have pretty much oversized classes. That definitely gives us a lot of stressors. And as educators, we also are parents. We also are siblings to our family. We're also supporting our family members in so many ways and means and in so many aspects. So the multiplicity of roles in here would basically conclude that it also is a means to stress many of us. For those who have kids, well, like me, in this time of the pandemic wherein everything is being done online, it is indeed a problem that we need to multitask. We also take care of our kids' online education. And some of you will be experiencing that pretty soon when the August class would start. Okay. And in some aspects, some of you will be starting in September, right? So that's definitely a challenge for all of us. And now we have technophobia happening around the corner. Some who do not exactly have fear of the use of technology may have the initial take that, oh, it's kind of difficult, you're resisting through the use of technology, because I understand there is such thing as blended learning in the Philippines that would happen not just in the formative, as early as that formative education, but also in higher education institutions. right? So teachers as the in the forefront, we are the ones experiencing the stress because we are the first one to learn the system. And for those who are already here or there in the other side of the world who are with us right now, technology use, having encountered of new different facilities or platforms that you have to use, that entails stress as well. And of course, the COVID-19 pandemic, the stories behind it, we're all grieving, right? We're all in the state we're in. We're thinking, what's next? What's the new normal? We keep on saying, let's take on the new normal. Let's plunge into the new normal, embrace the new normal. But no one exactly knows what the new normal is, right? We can only hypothesize, we can only project, but the state of the definition of the new normal is yet to be ascertained, right? So the COVID-19 pandemic definitely in the point of our history, it didn't just topple lives, countless lives. It just didn't hit the economy of different countries. But in terms of the state of emotions people would have, all of us are indeed grieving. All of us happen to have a different take on the matter, especially for those who are sick, whose family members were also hit by COVID-19, as an illness, among other related stories connected to COVID-19. All right. So I feel that, having said that, there are set of studies that I need to take into account before and during the pandemic. I think there is a need for us to look into the unique challenges. I'll go back to the previous slide on the cognitive overload, but there are unique challenges. Let me center to this one now, experienced by teachers during the pandemic. So, out of those previous studies that were conducted in the last 3 years regarding the plight of a typical educator, right now we have some unique scenarios on the run, like disruptions in peer and social relationships. All right. And here, it's so obvious that, knowing that there is such thing as physical distance that we need to provide, and social distancing at its peak, actually here in the UAE, once you still do not observe social distance in the mall or in a typical public utility, you can still be given a penalty of 3,000 dirham. So imagine how that is. That's more than 45,000 pesos. Some of the Filipinos in here have notified they had that encounter to pay that much. So it's really part of our internal desires to communicate physically face a person, that we're used to that. It's part of the disruption. And we also miss important milestones in our lives, like maybe some of you were assigned in the graduation committee, and you treasure those activities engulfed in that particular activity, and you miss that milestone, not just because you prepared for it, but maybe your kid, your niece, your relatives would also be graduate, and you are part of their success story, and they can't just be on stage you know so that's one of those examples. Managing mental health that exists even before the pandemic. Well, unfortunately, we're not exemption to any of the manifestations. So some of our dear educators may have been experiencing mental health concerns even before the pandemic. So it's difficult to treat all or to seek help, with professionals, particularly in the field, because you are locked down in your respective homes, right? And other factors in there, of course, still separation happens once in a while. Other related negative events that would surface, other factors, okay? Um, Things like you have your spouse outside the country and you're an educator there in the Philippines. You feel so sad. You have no one to talk to through. You may have some communications along the line, but knowing how slow the internet in the Philippines would be, the other factors would be contributory to this. Okay. All right. So it's good to have a take on what's happening globally and in terms of the projections there would be from experts. So imagine this one has been forecasted 2 years back by World Health Organization, and you may find it kind of odd that in 2030 depression will be the leading illness globally according to WHO or WHO. And this early we're saying this is really a dependable projection because COVID itself has triggered a lot of our fellow Filipinos, educators particularly, to be at the verge of this illness. All right. So taking into account before I plunge into the core of the other points of discussion, let's look by the numbers what is happening in the Philippines, particularly the mental health state, all right, that has been published 2 years back. So who experiences? We have around 7 to 20% Filipino adults, all right, and around 10 to 15 Filipino children. We're very much aware of this because in our classes, you will find students who suffer from different forms of mental illnesses, and you kind of pick this up and refer to your special needs instructor or not instructor, your specialist, in the guidance counseling office, your psychologist, for instance, inside your institutions. And we help out in fishing out information who among these kids are suffering from mental illness, right? So the morbidity in the Philippines, that happen to be the third, in terms of mental health illnesses, that's the third cause of morbidity in the Philippines, all right? And of course, poverty also triggers that, our economic conditions. Moving forward, we have around 10 million Filipinos. Some are not entirely noted yet, but this has been the forecast in terms of looking into the global studies as well, also released by World Health Organizations in their assessment. All right, so imagine we only have around 700 psychiatrists, and psychologists are included in the psychiatric nurses with around 1,000 of them. Could be higher now because this is in the past 2 years, but then it's still you can find a great number, of people suffering. Number one, you can see on the screen, depression. Two, anxiety, and of course we also have post-traumatic stress disorders brought about by our stress at work. So be careful, fellow educators. You may fall under this category, or any conditions related to your painful experiences in the past that you can't let go yet. Accident particularly that you have had before, so it has an impact on your behavior as well. That's the number three condition. That's a post-traumatic stress disorder. All right, so uh, educators of today, since we are expected to use our technology inside a classroom, we're all present in social media. If I would say many, if not exactly all of us, to be safe in my statement. But global studies would also say that it's a contributory factor towards stress. Eventually, if you feel stress, you would that would be escalated to a different level or to different plane. So that would entirely be constituting either um, an impact on depression and anxiety or other forms of mental illnesses. So although in the current time, um, the technology as a gauge towards or as a factor leading towards mental illness would not entirely be under the DSM-5, or that's a classification guide among experts in psychology and psychiatry. Time will come, we'll see this coming. Okay, so 61% of individuals from around the world would feel jealous, depressed, sad, or annoyed after checking updates on their social media. Imagine every time you wake up, the first thing that you would see is that how many, especially those who are very much fanatics with the use of technology, I mean, with the use of social media. Your tendency is to look into how many people have liked my posts. Is that right? Many are guilty on this, right? And of course, some of you would feel that, okay, some people just put, I mean, there are less number of people who liked my post, but some of them just place the like icon, not entirely love icon, or the hug icon that's new now, so we tend to really look forward to, we expect that as many people would like, or as many people would have this infringement of the heart like in there. Kumbaga po, pinusuan, no? Kung pinusuan yung ating likes, your tendency is to be happy, or to be to be more rejuvenated. All right? So unfortunately, some are still jealous at this point in time. That's technology is always double-bladed. Use the positive side of the blade as always, the negative side of the blade. If it causes your depression, your stress, or at some extent depression, avoid. It's easier said than done, I know, but it takes some mental effort. Avoid using such platform. All right. 3 out of 5 would spend more time in their computer than they do with their significant others. Pagka po nagko-conduct kami ng parenting in the digital divide in so many Philippine schools here in the UAE, parents, particularly who are attending our session, they agree that it's really painful to hear this data, that 3 out of 5 children or users of any sort of application there will be online, they would when they would say that we know our online friends or the use of technology more than our parents, that really is disheartening. So that's due to lack of connection with them. All right. And 73% of people believe that their use of electronic devices has contributed stress in their life. Na pag na-snatch ang telepono, nawala ang telephone on site, instantaneously, ayan na, nagkaka-panic attack na, nasa na yung telepono ko. Parang it seems you have lost your world. Our world happened to be confined with the use of electronic devices. Okay, again, that could be very sweeping statement for some, but that's just in general, when many individuals, regardless of age, who are very hooked to the use of gadgets would feel that way, right? So the right now there are a lot of behavioral indicators of anxiety and depression, but definitely these two are the top brass, mental illness. There would be that would steal our time, our health, our intimacy, our energy, and who would enjoy if one of the family members or yourself happen to experience, the signs of anxiety and depression, such as lack of sleep, or maybe you sleep in the afternoon in as much as you can. That's hypersomnia, instead of insomnia at night. That happens at night. And a lot more of the signs, like you feel so down, you feel so agitated, you have chest pains, for example. At times you tend to vomit, in extreme cases, and you're numb. No, you can't even get out of your feet and brush your teeth or take a bath. I hope you did today. But for those who can't even do that, and they can't even decide, they have problems with their concentration, these are some of the signs wherein you could probably either depress, or you have your anxiety. Just in this depression, the offshoot, in a higher mode, would be to commit suicide, or to hurt oneself. That's very much present in depression, but not exactly in anxiety. All right, in anxiety, you're, instead of having very very low feelings, at times it's hyped. You have more hyped emotions, and you can easily burst out, with your reaction whenever you would hear a surprising sound, for instance. You feel like it's the end of the world. That's what anxiety is. All right, so there are a lot of risk factors. Due to time element, I'll be giving a preview on each one of them. So the psychological factors at times can also be a social factors. It depends on how you take it. The unemployment many of our kababayans would be having, not exactly you as an educator, but some of them will be in the same situation, knowing that our loved ones or people that you come to know, it could be your friends, are unemployed. You being an educator, you're also affected by this. Of course, you have financial stress, negative life events that includes COVID-19, all right? Among other things in here, pill burden, smoking, lack of regular exercise. These are some of the factors that may be contributory to your psychological agitations, all right? And these are triggers. These are all triggers. Some of them are already given, like in biological factors, right? Women are more prone to depression due to biological factors, a lot of hormonal imbalances as you progress through age, like especially when you lose your menstrual cycle. You're prone to depression solely because of the estrogen level that happens to be lower than what it used to be when you were younger. And of course, if we have comorbidity, that means you have two different diseases at the same time. You may be experiencing depression and anxiety at the same time, or depression and your being diabetic at the same time, right? So these are very much pushing more on you to be depressed. So if you're fasting, if you're taking diabetic medication, that's also a factor wherein you can be triggered by the condition of being depressed, um, at that, because the composition of the medication you're taking, it's kind of contributing to the impact of the release of the happiness hormones. Okay, so among others. So weight in here, body mass index contributes to our well-being as well. So try to decrease much of the weight if you think you're overweight, because it's a factor to consider here. Social factors on the side, you have socioeconomic status. Of course, I've mentioned earlier on data in the Philippines, the reason for which we have more exposure to problems and concerns is because of the the economic condition the Philippines has. Then you may have other factors here, marital status, family conflict, ang daming awayan sa lupa, pag may namatay, na konti na nga lang ang naipamana, may awayan pang ganun. Very common in the Philippines. For social support, you may have your parents there, but you don't feel the kind of guidance and support that you are entitled to have in a way, right? So these are some of those. So what really is embracing the new normal? I mentioned earlier on, true, we don't know yet what it is, right? But in reality, we are just predicting that probably we need to really adjust our gears, go out with mask in our faces. If we are instructors, we expect that the new normal will be the use of a lot of modified teaching techniques that includes the use of technology at large. All right, take a look at this. In the current studies, there are hold on, let me just all right, here it's more on the mental health programs for teachers. All right, in the mental health programs for teachers, before, when we have our physical sessions, our operations that happen to be more physical, we have the free health screening in our respective communities, inside our educational settings, and that's pretty much healthy. We have mammogram, for example, for female teachers or faculty members, and or at some extent, when it comes to certain months that we celebrate certain events, we provide the free health screening for our teachers, for our educators. For now, there may be some special ways on how to do it online, probably, modified version. So we're just predicting what we say mental health programs or health programs for our faculty members. Counseling services would be out there soon. There are already facilities introduced already for exclusively for not entirely exclusively, I mean, but accessible for teachers. And we have mental health awareness that will definitely be intensified for now. You know, the main concern that we have here is not just you being in the forefront delivering your technical classes through the use of platforms that would be defined by your respective organizations. The issue here is that do you have the time to really mediate the stress being exposed to technology? Because there is such thing as Zoom fatigue, regardless of the platform. It can be WebEx, it could be Adobe Connect, it could be Microsoft Teams. There is such thing as online session fatigue, and we need to be very much aware of this. And in due time, I'm sure different institutions will come up with mental health awareness programs so that you would have a lot of break periods in between, very essential for your survival to keep our sanity, right? So we have e-tools and newsletters to supplement the mental health awareness. Online class exercises, many organizations have provided, especially here in the Middle East, for educators like us. We have twice in a week different online class exercises wherein we can register, and it's facilitated by some experts, navigating through not just Zumba but other meditational programs that will be connected to this aspect of the discussion. So others that you may come to think about, other than the counseling services, there may be some sort of coaching internal to the organization that would be relevant for our survival. Again, these are the programs that we can think about by today. I would also recommend some of those that I've mentioned if your organization doesn't have it yet. Great. All right, moving forward, regardless of our status in life, regardless of our occupation, well, specifically as an educator now, as my way of focusing the discussion, focus on what you can control. Okay, this set of information came from the association that we have in the Philippines, Psychological Association of the Philippines, and in their guidelines, I thought about this for the simple fact that all of us have our own private lives as well. We're not robots that we're switched on, and then when you're inside your work doing your online classes, you feel definitely okay and you forget all your problems behind. It doesn't work like that. So focus on what you can control. You know very well the aspects of somehow safeguarding your health by washing your hands. Will it be for every 20 minutes? That's your call, definitely, but the specific pointers experts have given us. Okay, and that is a control, something that you can control. You can control being sick if only if you're aware about what the experts would say in this light. So you also need to be vigilant about the information you consume. If your personality is very much into panicking mode, of course, why are you exposing yourself to a lot of stressors in social media, right? And if you're the type of person who worries a lot, why are you attuned in the news regarding how many have died and how many new cases we have in COVID? So this is something that you can also control. So avoid information that doesn't help. Adopt a regular routine at home. So earlier, one of the information I flashed that I wasn't able to go back is more on what we call cognitive overload, that experts say in this unprecedented time we have a lot of information to decide, and there is such thing as decision overload or information overload. For you not to have that, because you have to consider a lot of things in the process, adopt a regular routine at home. If there's a need for you to diarize it, to have some sort of journal. Journaling is very important nowadays. It's now being used as a noun. Journaling is indeed important. So drop on what you need to do and do things that you enjoy. Have time to pacify that kind of anger, or sometimes that kind of anxiety or guilt feelings that you have. Divert your attention to something that you love doing. Okay, read books that you haven't read before, that you used to do that, to do those activities. And some are even hooked into into Netflix, or just navigate through YouTube. And if that would really satisfy or give you enjoyment, why not? That's part of self-compassion. Accept the help that you need and extend the help that you can give. This is why, later on, I'll be giving very important information on the free online platform that has been introduced in the Philippines since April. Okay, there are a lot of experts there who can really help you with your problems, with your concerns. I mean, specifically your worries. No, the of course, the way we look at it, not all things that you would wish will be provided by a specific platform, but here we have more of the psychological support that we can offer you later on. Okay, so accept the help that you need. All right, and don't forget to give whenever you find it fit. Okay, maintain good health and increase your resistance to illnesses. Here comes the exercise. Okay, so later I'll specify some food that you also need to take, part of good diet, in my discussion in the next few slides. All right, very, very important is the use of compassion and empathy. Unfortunately, there are a lot of people, not just Filipinos, from around the world, regardless of their occupation, and some of them, unfortunately, happen to be instructors as well, who would dip their hands on current issues, and instead of helping, they would have more, a spinning off of negativities in there. Be part of a solution rather than of the problem. So when I say this, of course, in so many levels, you can think of a lot of things to say in a good manner, keeping attacked on your profession. Having said that you're a professional in there, and people learn from you a lot. So you have to be very careful with the kind of words you're using, especially in social media. And of course, I would say, or experts would say, you need to still be connected with the people that you love and that you trust, because that helps you cope with the social distancing. And yep, reach out eventually. Seek for help, not just for professionals, or from professionals rather, but you also need to consider speaking with friends, with colleagues that you think can definitely aid you. There is such thing as psychological first aid. Sometimes you don't essentially need a psychologist or a psychiatrist in a spur of the moment. You just need someone to talk to, and give time whenever some of these people would relate to you as well, especially if they happen to be your students. Many of our students have befriended us already in social media, and they reach out to us at specific point in time. Be a blessing one day at a time, right? Okay, I mentioned in one of those paradox, practice self-care. All right. And in terms of the food intake, that would be regulating our happiness hormones as well. In terms of the food intake, I would recommend you to take banana, for instance. Well, orange helps too. Strawberry. We have, well, tuna, for instance, yogurt. These are essential food intake that would boost our happiness hormones. Okay, so imagine banana is very much accessible and also affordable, and this is something that, I mean, a food that would definitely help us, improve our happiness hormones. Okay, among many, such as almonds and walnuts. All right, these foods that I have mentioned happen to be rich in dopamine and serotonin. Okay, dopamine happens to be our feel-good hormones, and serotonin happens to be a neurotransmitter that help us control our mood and to sleep well and to have very good digestion and appetite. Okay. All right, to summarize, we have, it sounds like really a teacher's job, right? Some tips for survival, or tips I would say to keep our sanity, right? So G for get involved. Of course, it's not just one way of saying reach out to the community, help out. It may be a form very plain and simple to us. You know, you attended to somebody else, you were able to give your time for someone who needs you the most. It could be a friend, it could be just a typical person you have encountered in social media, and you feel like helping out, giving your time with this person is already a form of getting involved. Okay, as long as you're doing good for the others, it's in the form of getting involved. Okay, relax here pertains to the improvement of your relationship with yourself. You know, that's the intrapersonal skills that many of us have to develop. Being kind to yourself, being compassionate, that's compassion, and at the same time, that's part of self care. Relax, find time to enjoy, take a break whenever you find it fit. Okay. Then of course we have ask for help whenever you need some assistance. Reach out to some people. You know, I mentioned this at an earlier time. Do your diet or do creative things. You know, I've met even one person. His goal is just to be on track with things that he has not done in the past. His passion is to paint. He has painted some good outputs in there, and some people have noticed that. They even have reached out to him on how to buy the items. So without him knowing it, he has generated, a lot of income out of that endeavor. So creative things could be part of the D in there, other than diet. Of course, exercising, very important. The more we exercise, the more we perspire out of doing physical activities. You don't feel depressed. You don't have the anxiety in there. Your energy is diverted into a more positive mode. And of course, it boosts your happiness hormones, right? That's the E. And S in the acronym grades would be to sleep, have that 7 to 8 hours sleeping time. All right, because many of us do not know that the reason why we have impaired concentration, and it also has an impact on our decision making, is because we lack some sleep. We're also awakening our not just our stress hormones, our cortisol levels to go up when we don't sleep. It's a silent pandemic, but it's also a way for us to look into the aspect that we're awakening our our cancer cells. The cancer cells happen to be awakened because you don't exactly sleep, or at least you don't sleep as much as normal people would do. Okay, so that's encapsulating the whole of the discussion there is, in line with the psychologist based guidelines, not just for teachers, but also typically for any individuals. We all have our private lives, right? And our private lives are connected, with the dire need to be aware of what we need to do self-care. And that is carried out with the way we perform our jobs as educators as well, right? So reflect on this, part of my parting words. Inside Out, part of Pixar movie, you can see the character of sadness there, right? And what I learned from this particular movie is that sadness basically gives us an impression that no one can go through life feeling amazing at all times. So as we normally say, it doesn't rain all the time. It is not darkness all the time. It's not always nighttime, but there's always a time, that we come to say everything will be defined as normal, whatever that new normal would be. So without the hard times, how would we know we are in the good times? Right? So looking into this paradox, all of these things shall come to pass. But of course, there are things we cannot control, but things we can control. That's what we need to those are edges of on the run we need to concentrate with, or concentrate on. Okay, so this is the information related to Ugat Sandaline. It's basically under the Ateneo de Manila University Foundation. It's called Ugat Sandaline. All right, and it's in collaboration with ABS-CBN Lingkod Ka Pamilya and ABS-CBN Bantay Bata 163. Of course, there are a lot of organizations that you would find in here that are also collaborating with them. And this is not just available in the Philippines, it's also available, fortunately, in the Middle East. And it's also available in Egypt and in some European countries that you can find in the screen. All right, please reach out. May not necessarily be you as educators, it could be someone in the family, it could be someone that you know, and you can definitely change a person's view of the world, at the time. So it's a way to help to be involved, right? Like what I have mentioned earlier on. And there are a lot of platforms that we have. It could be in Messenger, Hangouts, or Skype. And feel free to navigate through these, data of information and be a blessing for someone you know. All right, could be a person who happens to sit beside you as you hear this conversation, right? So my reflection in the educational front is that the unprecedented impact of the pandemic, the world literally stopped in spinning, but one thing that a particular industry has not stopped its desire to somehow educate minds and teach minds and touch hearts of people would be the educational institutions from there in the Philippines and from around the world. Wala mang pasok sa kasalukuyan na as we talk, especially for those who are in the elementary and high school levels. But of course, educational institutions, some of them are still operating with their summer classes. Some may not be in that particular operational stage, but they don't stop planning for what's next. Especially now that we have blended learning, part of our practice. And technology is definitely at its peak, shall continue to serve, okay, as educators in our respective community of choice, right? These are just some of the helpful links that I would provide you to navigate through. I know we have a recorded session today, so it's just a matter of Googling them and you will find either a video or specific text when it comes to some news and updates in the area or in the field of mental health, especially on how to cope with mental health. All right, and I would say thank you. Make your mental health a priority. Mental health indeed matters. Okay. Thank you very much for being with us today. And I'll be reading some questions that were posted um, here in as much as the chat that I have access on would entail for me to read further. Okay, and the rest will follow. All right, we have around 30 minutes, I think, for the question and answer. We'll see it fit to adjust to the time if in case, right? All right, let me just take you there. Let me read some of the comments that you have. Okay. All right. I'm scrolling down the chat threads that we have now. Any question there would be? Let me go through it. All right. Okay. There you go. The live chat in the stream that we have right now is what I am talking about. So for the PCPD administrator, if there are questions straight from the Facebook page, I'm not sure if that's also hooked in the same chat room that I am reading right now. So just maybe paste it in here so I can address it fully as well. Okay, most of the questions are in the for the acquisition of the certificates for today's session. All right. Okay. There you go. All right. Hi there, people from Manila, Butuan City. I mentioned already Naga at an earlier time, Tarlac. All right. Osamis Oriental. All right. Yep. What else? We have. I'm scrolling down. There are a lot in terms of the stream. The chat. There is people from Caloocan. Hi there. Okay, Bukidnon. Wow. Quezon City, San Juan. I mean Batangas, from Batangas, San Luis. Hi there. Okay, one of the questions, Janet Agolo, would be: does this mean that we should not be anxious about things that we do not directly affect us? The things that directly affect you, if you will allow them to affect you, definitely you will be affected by it. Because it's a stimulus. So for example, you have some friends who happen to have a lot of negative take on things. So nakikita mo na doon na when you scroll down, nagmumura, for example, feeling bitter about the world. This is something that directly affects you, right? But it's a choice. So if you want to be anxious about it, this is what I'm saying. If you want to be anxious about it, this is a question by Janet. You want to be anxious about it, then you prefer to be anxious about it. It contributes to your psychological well-being on the side. Meaning, it may not exactly be psychological well-being now because you're definitely affected. The fact that you're affected by stress, the mental health, from mental health, it may be converted. It depends on the impact, of course. I can only generalize. May be converted into mental health concern or a problem, but not exactly an illness. But as time goes by, with a minimum of 2 weeks, for instance, if your behavior would change and you become very irritable, maring it's also the influence of what you are viewing. With some people you respect that much and they're also doing the same, so you have the tendency to copy their behavior as well without you knowing it. It's a possibility. So there are things you can control by probably deleting them on your list. In my case, why will I be stressed with some people who happen to be like this? Lahat na lang ng tao inaway. So I have the tendency to either unfollow or at some extent delete that person from my list. So that, Janet, is the context that I'm trying to drive at. You know, you can definitely be anxious with all of those things, but the thing is, you can control not to be anxious if you would prefer to. All right, that's the context. I hope I have answered Janet Agolo there. Okay, that's her question. People from Lapu-Lapu City, Cebu. Hi there. Okay, I'm scrolling down on my screen right now. So I've seen some people with the greetings. Hello to each one of you. All right. Yes, Jennifer Pamis, grades very important, not just for educators like us. It's part of our KPI, our key performance indicators, to deliver our grades in due time. But yeah, it's very important with the kind of acronym I have given. Um, yep, you're welcome, Janet. In response to the question, yep, yeah, you won. One person said, I hope so. Yeah, grades for survival. Oriental Mindoro. Hi there. Yep, you're welcome. Thank you for those who were stating their comments in here. Okay. Some more questions. Please feel free because I'm scrolling down the rest of the questions in here. Our PCPD desk administrators, they will be pasting your questions from Facebook page or Facebook Live to this end stream that I'm navigating through in Facebook. Okay. Yep. You're welcome. Many of you are commending, stating your gratitudes and all that. All right. We're open for any questions and inquiries. Yep. Thank you, Annalyn Tavera Disquitado. Yep. Magandang buhay din sa'yo and to your family. Among others, all right, Dolores Quezon. That's where Janet Agolo came from. That's where Janet came from. All right, what else? Okay, Maria Cristina Estigo. I think that's also a very good question on the difference of the anxiety there is and depression. Kung titingnan po natin, para siyang magpinsan, magkamag-anak o magkapatid, no? They have a lot of similarities, depression and anxiety. I think that's a very good question coming from Christina, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, Maria Cristina Estigo particularly. So in this case, we're talking about the dichotomy, the nature of the disease in itself. So you need to be clinically diagnosed when we say you are having depression as a disorder or anxiety disorder. So anxiety, first and foremost, you have chest pains, you have high blood pressure. These are just some of the signs, all right, that a typical, depressed individuals may not exactly have, you know. At times, the energy would definitely be, there's a certain surge of energy whenever there's a stimulus that you would be hearing, So, for example, may kumaluskos o may, there was a siren that would be out in the open. So you will suddenly jolt out of your workspace, or kung nagtuturo tayo, bigla ka na lang nabulaga doon o may nasabi kang hindi nakakaiba, no? Na nangyayari naman din talaga. So, but at the back of your head, hindi lang siya gulat, no? You're thinking, oh my God, it's already end of the world. So, yun na yung height nung anxiety, no? So, the depressive individuals normally have very low energy. All right. There's the commonality of the two would be impaired concentration, because pareho silang may sleeping pattern problems. All right. Both also have eating pattern problems, no? Minsan hindi makakain, or the opposite, overeating. O hindi makatulog, or at opposite, oversleeping. So those are similar signs. But then both of them feel worried, okay? But excessive worries come in anxiety, not exactly in depression, all right? So depressive individuals also have the tendency to miss out even the most simple things in life. Kangina, I was cracking a joke, but it's true that even brushing their teeth, taking a bath, they avoid people, and they lose hope. Hope is a very important section of depression, wherein people are definitely hopeless if they are depressed. Okay, this is not exactly shown in the signs for anxiety, right? So in anxiety, parang hindi yun yung major focus na no hope. So kaya yung karamihan ng depressed, they tend to commit suicide kung nasa peak na talaga nung illness. And suicide is not entirely part of the manifestation under anxiety. All right, so these are just some of the many signs, clinical signs of depression and anxiety. Thank you, Maria Cristina, for that question. Yep. And yep, Janet, I can provide the copy of my presentation to the organizers. So since you're already in touch with them, you can make a way to connect with them, and probably the rest will follow. I don't know. They may have a way to send it to you privately, or have it in their specific platforms. Yeah. You're welcome po. A lot of you were stating your gratitude in here. Yep. Yes, Virgilio, I Ogbinar. True that it has a lot of health insights, but at the end of the day, if you're physically healthy, it's as good as saying that it contributes to your mental well-being. And same thing if you're mentally, healthy, that you're thinking positively, that contributes also to the kind of relationship you have with people. So nandun yung framework ng physical, mental, and social. So yeah. Just to state that in line with the statement of Virgilio, right? What else? How can we know if our student is undergoing depression or anxiety? Any notable signs to look out for? So, I think that's another good question from Hilda Mojica. All right, Hilda, there's a big role entrusted to us by the parents of these kids, whether they are already in the college or in the formative age. I think we have the responsibility to really be keen with the way they behave in the classroom. So those behaviors I've mentioned, the mamayat masyado o baka naman masyadong tumataba, no? The opposite. Or you would find break period na nasa classroom pa, no? And then you were processing, what's going on. There are a lot of ways on how you connect with them. But ang isa po na mahalagang factors na tingnan po natin in the aspect of monitoring, not just their grades, no? Pag nakita natin extremely bumababa yung grades ng mga bata, there can also be an impact, lalo na kung hindi naman talaga yun ang pattern ng bata, no? So talk to the student. If the student doesn't relate much, refer to the guidance counselor or talk to the parents when needed. Lalo na sa formative age, it's so important for us to look into this. We saw the data. Kids are also prone to this type, especially at this point in time. There are a lot of triggers. So yeah, those signs that I have given, in anxiety or in depression, so yung matatarantahin na tinatawag natin in our own language, will be part of the anxiety. But kung exaggerated na ito and the students do not perform very well, yun po kasi yung aspect ng mental health. If you are performing your duties very well within the expected set of behaviors the community, and your family expect it to be, then you're in that normalcy, you know. So, but on the side, of course, it's a different thing if you no longer come if you are avoiding people, you don't talk, there's sudden change in your behavior, in your interest, then it's a way for us to look into this, that we can refer to your school psychologists or to your guidance counselors, or very able to process what these kids are feeling. Alam niyo po, let me share one information regarding a situation here in the UAE, wherein if a Philippine school, and it happened not just once, it could be in another school, in the UAE. So we had the circumstance wherein two kids committed suicide. There's just 1 day interval, so it really shook the whole institution and the Filipino community as well, no? So we took into account what was stated in their essays, in their homework, and if you would find similar things in your line of work right now, you have seen a drawing of a student, or a character strangulating himself or herself, then that can also be an indicator. So maganda po yung tanong na yan. A lot of possible answers there are, but you need to really be mindful. You need to really be sharp in observing the changes in the behavior, so you can do what's best for that kid. Yeah. All right, let me see. There may be some questions I haven't attended to yet. Yeah, thank you, Farah, for a very good insight. Farah Parain. Yep. On the aspect of anxiety, there are some questions in here, on how to be mindful, about it. Actually, the psychology of fear simply emanates from the fact that the reason why your emotional response happens negatively towards something else that gives you the fear that you have is because of the lack of knowledge. That's how the experts would explain it to be. But if you fully understand what's happening in your environment, how to adjust to it, you're lessening the degree of fear, or at some extent anxiety, there is in your environment. So if you know what to do, if you know how to safeguard your health, having said those programs that I've mentioned on the side, and maybe you can also talk to your immediate heads on some programs that may improve the well-being of your fellow teachers, fellow educators, fellow faculty members. That can definitely help. Thank you for that insight in this in this chat room. All right. Oh, we also have some people from URS Rodriguez or URS, so thank you. Many of them had been in my webinar yesterday in another topic, Maria Sharon Villaruel. Hello po. Okay, I graduated from there in psychology in my collegiate education. All right. Those who were saying they need some sort of help. We don't know how, but please review the video we have sent you, because there's a way for us to reach out with you if you're the ones needing it. But of course, it's not entirely me. There are a group of experts in that Sanda line that I was talking about, and they will be more than happy to also accommodate your concerns, in terms of adjusting to the new normal, um, yep, you're welcome. Yep, so there are a lot of questions related to your certificate here. It's being you're being responded to by the PCPD desk administrators. So please bear with us on this note. All right. There are some people from San Jose del Monte City, Bulacan. Hello po sa inyong lahat. People from Quezon, Dolores, Quezon. All right. Yep. There you go. All right. Some of us, I'll be attending to two more questions. One of the questions would be, last two questions would be, some of us want to be fit to the new normal, but some of us are having difficulty to cope up. Is it healthy to be in trend? Okay, so people have different coping mechanisms. People have different strengths, we have different personalities. The more your personality is more negative than not, unfortunately, it's also biological. In my discussion earlier on, there is a discussion pertaining to the risk factors. Biological factor is that unfortunately, the disorders are passed on to us, by our parents particularly, or by our forefathers. There's this tendency that even our forefathers would have that, even for the lowest, uh, small link there may be, that it's a possibility. So the more one of our parents or both of them happen to be negative in the aspect of taking things, we get it too. So the personality we have, it's kind of integrated. So that question makes sense in a sense that some adjust to the new normal very fast. It's because the adjustment profile of that person can really be advanced than the others. So if you have grit, you have the perseverance, you have high EQ, emotional quotient, then chances are you're more adaptive to the environment, to the new normal. But you're basically right in there that some find it difficult to cope. This is from Mark Joseph Mariano. Some people find it really, it's the opposite to cope, to be in the trend. It may take some time, but the chances are you'll have more, more adeptness, if I would say so, more clarity in the adjustment that you would have to do if you're cleared about how to do things on your own. So discover how people adjusted to the situation. If you really find it difficult, you look into helplines. You reach out to people, or you read some literature related to adjustment, and that would help you a lot to be in the same pace. All right, and be open about possibilities. If you now that you're aware that it's kind of difficult for you, not exactly you, Mark Joseph Mariano, but other people that it comes with the awareness. If you're aware of what is happening and what has to be done, your anxiety level goes down and your coping starts to happen. will leave the workforce at least twice or three times a year to attend to their mental health problems. All right, this is essentially true because silently people do not want to, to forecast what they are going through. So they don't basically, they just make some excuses, some emergencies, but in reality, it's in line with their mental health. So that's how it goes. So obviously, in here we have multiplicity of factors to do other than being aware, other than those guidelines I've mentioned a while ago. I think a person who's already at the brink of burnout, especially if you would see the different signs of depression or anxiety that I have mentioned a while ago, try to reach out to experts. Again, the online platform I have mentioned, Sandaline. When you type Ugat Sandaline, meron na po kayo masasandalan in moments like this because it's not always there, So just try to take advantage of the opportunity to help yourself or other people who are in need. So reaching out to people very important, and try to also part of self-help. Make sure you dedicate a time for you to take some breaks. I mentioned the Zoom fatigue there is. So if you have long interactions, 6 hours of teaching in a day, just for example, that's really unhealthy. Especially you're seated, your blood doesn't circulate that well. Be kind to yourself. So in that way you can free out some of the worries, and your stress would start to go down. Yeah, thank you so much for that particular question. And I'll try my best to somehow communicate with the others who have some questions in here still, because our time has gone out. We have already exceeded the time in here. Yep, but I'll be more than happy to attend to these questions. I'll make a way to respond to your questions in this trail of chats that we have. All right, so I call it a fruitful encounter with all of you. Apologies for the others whose location I wasn't able to mention. There are a lot of people in the thread that I'm viewing right now, and yep, just communicate with our PCPD desk administrators for any concerns other than your certificates, as you need them. Yep, and again, it's thank you very much for the opportunity to help. I do appreciate the Philippine Continuing Professional Development Training Center Incorporated for this wonderful, wonderful opportunity to be in touch with all of you. It was a great time having you around. Yeah. Again, thank you very much. God bless you and stay safe. Be kind. Thank you.